Tonight, our featured speaker is Rebecca Reeser, experience-led growth strategies. So I appreciate you coming, Rebecca. Thanks so much. Welcome. And I will hand over the share to you.
All right. Thank you so much for that warm intro. I am super honored to be here tonight and back in my hometown after a little tour of the world for the last couple of years. I've been based in Puerto Rico and enjoying the kind of vibe down there in Silicon Island and learning all about the crypto community. But happy to be moved back here in San Antonio, and just super honored to be with you all tonight. So tonight's topic is experience-led growth strategies. And without further ado, we can hop right in. This is the structure of the night. We're going to do a quick little intro exercise here in a minute. And so don't run too far away from your computers. If you have a piece of paper and a Sharpie nearby, that'd be awesome. Because we're going to do just a very quick drawing exercise to introduce people, and then we'll hop into the talk. And basically, I'll start with setting the landscape, talking a bit about the intersection of strategy and experience strategy. And that ladders us into the rest of the talk, where I'll be making the case for why experience quality drives value, demonstrating, basically what are the qualities that experienced leaders get right, and then give you guys some ideas of where to start if you want to go ahead and build a support for an experience strategy in your own company or with your own clients. So then we'll wrap the chat with some highlights and Q&A. Okay, so we'll jump in. I'll share a little bit about me. So yes, it's me. Hi, a little bit of a Taylor Swift fan. And so my name is Rebecca Reeser. My pronouns are she and her. And what I do is I help teams build trust, solve complex problems, and deliver value faster. I have my own consultancy. It's called Rebecca Reeser International. I'm the principal consultant there. And with my background in, again, basically leading business strategy and experience strategy for Fortune 100 companies to fintechs and kind of across industries, I really like to focus now on doing sprint facilitation. So coming in when there's big, hairy problems to solve, when there's decisions that need to be made, when there's an experience vision lacking, and helping teams really craft that together. Like I come in as a guide and you all put it together and have a clear path, blueprint to move forward and execute on business goals. I also do leadership workshops as well as strategic transformation consulting. So that's me. And now we're going to connect with all of you. So if you guys don't mind, I'd love it for everyone to come back with their cameras on, if possible. And even if you don't have a piece of paper and a pen, then what we're going to do for the next 30 seconds is draw an image of an animal that embodies how you're feeling right now.
I'm sorry, started. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Okay, we can start the. We can give people a little extra time if that was a little too quick.
"15 seconds is going to take me that long to find the Sharpie."
Okay. Good user feedback. Okay, sorry guys.
I'm just
I hit the button too fast. It's a little bit unfair too, because I did my drawing on Illustrator. So I don't know why I did that, but just so we could have it. So I can go ahead and share what I am feeling. So this is my sketch, my first try in Illustrator, so that's why it came out looking like that, but it's an octopus. And I felt that way because it's like this mix of excitement and a little bit of like squishy, like I've got to kind of keep up with in order to do this, but ultimately 8 arms, because I want everyone to feel a part of the community and brought in with this talk and feel, like they can relate to it. So I say that also because I really want to welcome questions at all levels, and also welcome people to, give feedback if I hit the mark or miss the mark on any thing. I think we can all grow through better feedback of our audience. So just want to be open and connecting. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing screen for a second, just so we can all see each other. And if you guys don't mind, if you're ready to go ahead and share, okay, Sherry, go ahead and jump in. We'll do kind of popcorn style. Sherry, if you tell us your name and what you drew and why, what you were feeling.
Yeah, my name is Sherry, and I picked the dog because I want to sleep, eat, and play all the time, but yet I'm feel dutiful most of the time. So
nice. Adrian, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'm a happy little otter, and I also suck at drawing animals.
Awesome. Oh wait, that's the wrong one. No,
Nice.
that's what I use to inspire my drawing. I'm a lion. But see, this one's much more colorful.
Nice.
Just sitting around, being cool, looking over the pride, waiting to strike or do whatever I need.
I got one. It's I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's supposed to be a caterpillar, but in the, well, let me get it to the camera. Caterpillar, but in the cocoon state.
Ooh, look at that.
Because I'm really feeling like in a very transformational period of growth all the time.
There you go.
Constant state of growth.
Nice one. Nice one.
Beautiful. Who wants to go next?
I can go.
All right.
Let's see. Oy, here you go.
Wow.
That's really good.
So a little bit of an ostrich, looking out, wondering what's going on. Just which direction, what's happening. And plus it's something I could draw from memory. Didn't have to look it up. No.
Well done. Well done.
I can go next if you want. I haven't got a Sharpie, but I did a happy, content cat, not only because it matches what I'm doing, but I have 6 that just they've had a pretty content, good day, and so have I. So I figured I'd draw a picture of that.
Oh, awesome.
I drew a bunny because I feel like I've been hopping around everywhere.
Oh,
And all I really
love
want
a
to
bunny.
do is plop down and go to sleep.
McD says he's a cool cat in chat.
Okay, awesome.
oh, there he is.
And then I don't know if you can see mine. A
Use
squirrel.
Squirrel.
Yes, because I am always jumping off and doing the next thing that grabs my attention. So when there's something in the chat, you notice I saw McD put something in the chat because I have to look.
Amazing. Okay.
Bye just joined. Bye, go ahead and Adrian can tell you what the assignment is while the other ones go.
I think we just rounded everybody out. So we might give Jerome and Bai a pass on this one. They don't get
Jaron said he was going to be cooking and eating.
Oh, okay.
We can give him a pass for meeting his needs.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that was fun. Thanks, guys. Okay. Oops. No. Well, 1 second here. Let's get on. Okay. So, and as you might see from some of the images here, I've been having fun with the Midjourney tooling. So I just created this to say, welcome everybody, our wild animal pack to this magic school bus that we're going to be on tonight. And let's go ahead and get going. Okay, so beginning with setting the landscape. And I actually just want to start with sharing a bit about, my background and how I got to this topic, right? So I mentioned I have this background that kind of goes between human-centered design. Actually worked with Susan at Firecat for 3 years, and ended up then moving into UXSA. And after working as a design producer there for just a couple of months, I kind of got catapulted into corporate strategy. And it was a really foreign experience for me. I remember thinking, like, these people are speaking a different language. Like, they're using words that I've never heard before. I didn't have an MBA. And so it was a little bit of a jarring experience to get that opportunity, and also, a great learning experience. And so I'm bringing that to bear because I am excited to take what I have learned in that time, kind of getting into the business side of different companies, and bring it back to the UX community as an empowering opportunity to be like a translator between worlds. And so just to take us kind of back into that like corporate strategy space, just for the beginning, of this presentation, set some bit of like, again, laying the landscape. Traditional business strategy often talks about these things called growth levers as ways to, grow the profitability of a business. And those things include things like acquiring new customers and driving product sales, doing things that cut costs or create efficiencies. Might be counterintuitive as a growth lever, but if you think about it, if your product sales are the same, but you reduce your costs, that means you're going to become a bit more profitable. Just like budgeting might do that for us on a personal level. And then retaining existing customers. And that's an important one that I think oftentimes, doesn't get as much excitement in like the product world, but it is absolutely critical. And I just am laying this foundation as traditional growth levers, because when I came into that corporate strategy space and heard people talking about those things, I felt like there was always, from having this experience background, somewhat of a gap between the way that people would talk about growing a company and doing all these kind of very like robotic mathematical things versus just the way that humans are, and the experience we want to have. And, as an empathetic person, the experience that I would want the company to create for our customers in order for them to have a good experience. And it was like, in my mind, intuitive that if a customer has a good experience, that's going to help grow the company too. But like, where does that really fit in this kind of like, series of levers, right? And maybe it falls closer to retain existing customers. And in this next slide, I'm going to kind of show why I think actually that's probably the most important of those traditional levers for, the genesis of experience strategy. And that's because it might be counterintuitive, but there's a lot of research that shows that companies that spend money to acquire customers don't necessarily, end up growing sustainably. And that's even if they like successfully acquire new customers. And I laid out this fake data just to prove the point. But it actually strikes a similarity to what I saw happen in the industry, in the banking industry, when I was in charge of a global benchmarking study that our company would participate in. Now, that company for a year actually had to stop advertising. And so even though our competitors were continuing to pay to acquire new customers, and in fact, we're outpacing us in the amount of new customers that they were acquiring, we were actually continuing to outgrow our competitors in that time period. And it just like shocked me. Like, how is that possible, right? How do you stop marketing and still outgrow your competition? And this is the math to kind of show why, right? Because if you're a company that is growing 3,000 new customers, but you're losing on average, 2,500 customers in the same year, you're only growing 500, right? Obviously, too, if you're acquiring new customers, but then you're losing even more customers than that, then your overall customer base is going down. While if you're even not advertising, but just growing from organic like referrals, but you're doing a great job of retaining your customers, you're actually set up in a way where you can, without spending any money to acquire new customers, outgrow your competitors in just total number of customers. So I just paint that picture because it kind of, I paint the picture with numbers, but I want to also kind of, just relate it to like a bucket, right? So if you're, one of these competitors, you basically are putting all of your new customers into a bucket, but the bucket has a big hole at the bottom of it, right? And so you're just having to continue to try and fill your bucket with customers, but you're not able to maintain them, and so then they're leaving out the door. Meanwhile, even if you're not filling your bucket as aggressively, if you don't have a very holy bucket, you can do a lot to maintain your customer base. And so this is actually the reason why research shows that for the companies in the world that actually grow, or I guess the world's most successful growth companies, the companies that are literally the most profitable companies in the world, 80% of the value that they create in their growth is coming from their existing customer base. So that's those who are already in the bucket, and that's by unlocking new revenues from those customers. So it's finding ways to keep people happy in the bucket, right? Finding ways to deepen the relationship with those customers and build loyalty, increase satisfaction, drive engagement, and ultimately find ways to unlock revenue from those customers. So I think that is why this is such a winning strategy. When we think about experience-led growth strategies, it's really considering, how do we keep people in the bucket, right? It's not always all about how do we grow new customers. And although, it is good to attract new customers and grow them, it's so important for businesses who want to be profitable, to create good experiences if they don't want to end up being commodities, because ultimately there's different reasons why, people will buy a product or an experience. And for sure, price is one of those reasons, right? And so if you're not competing on experience, you might be competing on price. But if there's a lot of competitors in your space and you're always trying to be the cheapest product, like the quality of your product is ultimately going to suffer. And you are likely to end up, having cheap Chinese competitors or, competitors who are replicating what you're doing. And so that's where we find kind of the opposite side of business strategy pointing us towards experience-led growth strategies. So what is that, right? Like, how do we define that? And I think it really comes down to these three components. Okay, so companies that have figured out how to really derive value through the experiences they create for their customers have done that deliberately, right? They create a vision of how they want their experience to be different. And then they link that experience to the value that it can create in engaging with the customer. So, for example, a deliberate experience vision might be, in 3 to 5 years, we want to have the most frictionless car buying experience and make it so that people are never going to pull their hair out about buying their car and sitting in that terrible chair at the dealer again, right? And, be very specific in how they want to differentiate that. Like, we want to make it easy for you to check out at home from your mobile phone or anywhere, and not have to be in that dealer chair. And we just want to make it so easy to finance that car and for you to get the chance to shop for all sorts of cars and not have to have just one in mind in order to know you'll be able to get financed for it. That's an example of like a specific, experience vision for one component of that customer journey. And so the next component, linking that experience enhancement to value, is another critical component here, because when we talk about strategy, that's when the MBAs in the room want to hear what the numbers are, right? So it's thinking about how do we quantify how many more sales we could make if we actually simplified, if we invested in simplifying this part of the experience. And where else in the end-to-end experience do we feel we want to deliberately differentiate so that our customers become more loyal to us and want to continue to buy from our brand? And so when you create those two things, experience vision, and then the link to value, what happens is it kind of breaks the traditional frame from the product view of the world to the kind of greater business playing field, and enables companies to think about how do we enable, or it drives companies to think about how do we enable these types of clear futuristic experience visions, and do it in a way that might actually mean we have to change in different parts of our company. So if you're no longer going to be a car dealer or be offering people, to buy through the traditional financing at the dealer, maybe that means that, your dealer financing office goes away and it's all done online. So there's a sort of part of this strategy that is mapping the implications of what your vision is, not just to the quantitative value that it's going to deliver, what are the metrics that are going to shift when we implement this new vision, but also in what ways do we really need to change our business and invest, for example, in new capabilities, or perhaps, repurpose people who were doing one job before and we want them to do a different job in this new future state. And so that's really the core three components of what an experience-led growth strategy entails. So now we're going to go further into why experience drives value. This is the basis of the case for competing in this dimension. And so I want to say it was about 20 years ago, Harvard Business Review came out with this really cool book. It's called Service Profit Chain. And what they did was they looked at companies who were the best in customer experience and the most profitable. And they said, what are these guys doing? Because everybody loves them and they are super profitable, right? Let's try and make an equation out of the formula that these guys are getting right. Who doesn't want to have a great experience with a company? And on the business side, who doesn't want to be a profitable company that's loved by their customers? And so what the service profit chain came up with is this very equation. And service profit chain is kind of a very specific type of value chain. And I know, value chain isn't a word that most people kind of use in their everyday language. Value chain in business refers to what are all of the different activities that go into creating an end product or service. And so service profit chain is really talking about what are all the components that go into creating a service and it's profit. And so what experience leaders in that book, in the service profit chain model here, do is they acknowledge that there's a really critical need to recognize the value of both the employee experience and the customer experience. That in order to really be the best at providing an amazing high customer satisfaction, it actually begins with how well you treat your employees and how well you think through their end-to-end experiences with your company as an employee. And so that's where, so we'll start here on the left, right? That employee experience quality is absolutely ricocheting into all of these different components that end with profitability. And I'll give an example to speak through this model, right? So let's say, have you ever started a job and immediately had a terrible onboarding experience? I know I have. And like literally day one, I started to get like stomach pains and I was like doubting whether or not I belonged there and like, was this the wrong decision? And so all that time that I was like, you know, doubting whether I was in the right place was time that I could have been excited about working there and therefore focus on what the heck I was there to do, right? So that's relating the employee experience quality to the employee's satisfaction in their job and also their productivity. And ultimately, you know, I was like already on that, in that bad onboarding experience, thinking about, should I even be here? Should I be looking for another job? Like, do I know now that this is the wrong fit for me? So again, all of these factors ultimately make a big impact when it comes to the amount of energy then that people, the employees, can put into creating a good customer experience, right? And that could be even just, you know, impacted by the technology. Even if you loved your job, but you had terrible technology to support you, then you're like, kind of like, this kind of sucks. And, you know, I wish I could be doing, you know, my job right now rather than waiting for Zoom to work. And that's taking away from time that you could, or resources that you could be putting into improving the customer experience, right? And so ultimately, you know, that all ricochets across, right? So if you have more engaged, satisfied, productive employees creating a better experience quality, then hopefully that's going to also yield higher customer satisfaction and ultimately higher customer loyalty. And higher customer loyalty, we know, is correlated with higher profitability. And higher profitability means we can put more resources into thinking through how do we continue to drive this beautiful chain of value and continue to improve the employee experience and continue to improve the customer experience and continue to drive profitability. So that's really the basis for why this works, why experience-led growth strategies actually deliver value at the end of the day that is super, it can be super competitive. And so just harping on, you know, what is the value of building loyal customers? Well, loyal customers are much more likely to forgive a brand. And I'm sure we've all had those experiences. If you have a company that you absolutely hate, and then there's just like the littlest thing that goes wrong, but you've like had so much trauma from them, like that can be like the moment that like you cut the cord, right? You're just like, I'm done. Versus a company that you identify with the brand, you love the brand, they've treated you so well, they know your grandma's name. Like, of course, like if they make a mistake, like then you feel a lot more likely, like it's not going to be the thing that drives me away. Loyal customers are also 5 times as likely to repurchase from a brand and 7 times as likely to try a new offering. And so when it comes down to then driving, you know, those product sales, which is again another growth lever, we ultimately see a huge correlation in the quality in the amount of value that a experience-led growth strategy can drive. And just to give like real numbers to that, this is new data from McKinsey, which I was super excited to see because most of the research I have that is specifically quantifying this is like over 5 years old. And in March of this year, they released this and it basically shows here 2 lines, right? So this top line is basically tracking companies that are leaders in customer experience as measured by their Net Promoter Score average. And, the blue line is the laggards, the ones that have a lower customer experience score on average. And this is across industries. We're seeing, the revenue that these companies are driving, their profitability, is higher for those who are leaders in customer experience. And that it's, I think, very interesting to note that growth is accelerating, especially since the pandemic started. People are valuing experience more and driving, more purchases and more revenue with brands that they appreciate the experience from. And I think, when we think about what happened during the pandemic, it's kind of, I think it's intuitive to understand that, because, for example, pre-pandemic, you might have had a favorite restaurant, but if they didn't get technology in place in order to make sure that you were safe in your customer experience, going to pick up, takeout food from their restaurant, they probably lost your business during the pandemic, or some of us, And so those companies that thought about how do we continue to think about these things that are meaningful for customers, these needs that are unmet for customers, and turn those into opportunities to innovate, are the ones that are continuing to see revenue growth, as a result of having good customer experience. So, just to break down then, what exactly are these experienced leaders who are the ones with the high, net promoter scores, doing right? What is it that we can try and emulate in these companies in order to drive the same type of growth from experience? One of the things they do is really thinking about the way that they measure success, right? In the way that experienced leaders measure success, they have this whole kind of traditional business lens where they're looking at their profitability, they're looking at their benchmarks with the competition, thinking about the demographics and, what are their, how can they, say, drive automation to optimize for efficiency and speed and cost. But they also make sure to balance that with the customer lens, and thinking about how do they weigh and blend these two lenses when they're thinking about the scorecards that they're holding their companies accountable to. So the customer lens is a lot more about taking the kind of longer term view, right? Thinking about how can we measure long-term customer satisfaction, loyalty, and advocacy, so we don't drive short-term profit at the expense of losing customers long-term. How can we think about improving customer service journeys? So not just, again, only focusing on the product sales or profitability, but also when a customer engages with us to do something as related to their product, like return a product or change their payment method, how can we make it really easy for them to do that? And also, how can we incentivize our company to really listen to our customers so that we're thinking about opportunities to continue to improve those service journeys? We're also looking at, these companies are also looking at what are their customer needs, and putting incentivizing, actually implementing data and analytics around the customer journey. And so if you don't have the greatest customer analytics tool set to start, a company who knows they want to start prioritizing customer centricity can say, well, it's a goal for us to increase measurement of customer experience. And even if, we don't have a baseline yet, creating a baseline is the goal to start. And they also make sure to focus on the frontline employees and give those employees an experience that's as frictionless as possible. So frontline employees are just like amazing sources of feedback when it comes to how to improve a customer experience, right? And if they have really bad tooling or they have something that's not working for them, you know, it's going to be really hard for the customer to have a good experience. So resolving barriers for frontline employees and employees in general, but especially frontline employees becomes a focus for these types of more evolved, I would consider them more evolved, but experience-led, experience leaders. I guess I've been going kind of fast, and I just would love to check and make sure if anybody has a question, I can pause for a second or comment here.
Yeah, I guess the question I have is, if I'm in a job interview, you know, a few weeks from now, how am I going to know what type of company it is? What questions should I ask them to kind of, you know, figure that out with maybe without probing too deeply, maybe?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, you know, it's asking them what are the metrics by which like or metrics or outcomes that are important to them in this job. And also, well, you know what, I think actually maybe the next slide we can, I want to come back. It's a great question. I want to come back to, because I think the next slide might help in terms of like a checkbox of assessing a company. So qualities of experienced leaders, kind of when you look at them holistically, right? Kind of starting at the top here, they talk in their culture, they talk about the value of the employee and the value of the customer. They have a culture that really values humans. You know, I have a friend who's doing some interviews, and her first interview with Kroger, she had to do like an interview with a robot. Like she didn't meet anybody, but she had to like do a test and answer questions with like a computer. And, you know, I mean, maybe they are more human inside the company, but for me, that was kind of like a red flag. There's a lot of like dehumanizing that can happen even just in the interviewing process. And so that can be like a red flag, right? And then also thinking about, you know, looking at like, what are the outcomes and the ways that they're going to measure success in this company? Are they really thinking about just profitability? Are they just thinking about efficiency? Are they just using me to convert to AI and I'm going to be like kicked out the door after? Or is there like a kind of, you know, different perspective that this company holds in its values? So, and having a, you know, values conversation with your hiring manager might be also a good place to look. Another thing that these experienced leaders do is they really recognize the need to have good data, right? So quant and qual both are important for understanding, you know, and being able to really act on customer needs. Of course, having great quantitative data can help us understand what's happening, what are the trends in real time, get a picture of where we are relative to where we want to be. But, you know, qualitative insight around customers can also help us see problems that we might not have thought to measure before, to help us uncover new customer needs where we might have an opportunity to innovate and drive new customer experience differentiation. So these companies tend to have, when they're mature, both capabilities, the quant and the qual, and are mindful about integrating the insights from both sides. They also, these companies also have, you know, tend to be more modern in the way that they operate. Like, you know, when I was working at UXSA, when I first started, I think I had like maybe 10 or 11 bosses above me. So to like make a decision that was within my realm was, you know, whatever, relatively easy. But if it was something that wasn't in the realm of me or my team, like it would take so many meetings to get any insight or approval to kind of think outside the box. And so companies that are flatter today tend to have, or these types of companies tend to be flatter, tend to be able to, you know, have more insight to the front lines, and to be able to move more quickly because the operating models are not as hierarchical. And also oftentimes they move the operating models around experiences as opposed to just products. And so the reason why that's important is, you know, you can have a bunch of different like product lines, but when you then want to do something that's very experience oriented, like let's say improve the main navigation of a website, it can become difficult to drive those types of projects forward in the older kind of product oriented operating models, because people are used to being responsible for this one product, and now you're asking them to like look at something much bigger. And so they kind of operate in a fiefdom method and have a hard time collaborating, versus these more flat organizations are you know, doing a lot better in terms of being able to make decisions that bridge across products, because they're thinking about things in terms of like, you know, the customer need is to, you know, get to navigate to where they need to go quickly, and they design their organizations in a way that prioritize things that are not just products, and they also invest in technology and continue to drive efficiencies and modernization in that tech stack, so that they aren't, again, just optimizing for sales or optimizing for kind of retention for one product lens, but thinking about, you know, what are technologies that we can invest in order to improve the experience of a customer as they hop in and out of products, and as they generally engage with the company and move across channels. And so that's a big one. They also are very collaborative. They tend to move faster with agile methodologies, and think about blending the best of human capabilities with digital capabilities, finding now ways to integrate AI into back office processes, and also using methods like design thinking in order to create the best experiences and processes as they move forward. So that
we've got a little side chat going in
Okay.
chat. I was riffing on Agile again. Jaren had seen the same comment that Bob made on that same thread in LinkedIn, I think, where the design leader was saying that Agile is incompatible with human-centered design practice. And, you know, I was interested to know what you thought about that, Rebecca.
Well, I think it's important to still, at some level of the company, enable people to think about having that long-term experience vision, which is counterintuitive to Agile, when, you know, Agile is really, you know, doing these 2-week iterations, but there has to be a vision, in my opinion, and like a research arm that informs that vision. And then that vision gets basically, again, mapped to clear outcomes that will deliver value to the business, and then scoped into bodies of work that drive a roadmap. And that roadmap can then inform Agile teams. And that roadmap would probably have lots of gaps in terms of research and how to exactly execute what the vision is. But at least the vision that is like, where is everybody on this massive aircraft carrier ship going, has been validated with research and has some conceptual cohesiveness to it.
Louise has a good concept, minimum viable experience, that I think the whole the thing I like about Agile is the test and learn aspect of it, and the try to deliver value with every sprint. If you really read the Agile manifesto and follow it, it would get you there, especially if, like you say, the long-term vision. The long-term vision part is informing, and this is John Griffin actually called out Safe Agile by name, but Safe Agile has a whole portfolio area that when we were working in strategy at USAA, we were trying to play in that portfolio level influence. The problem is that the short-term thinking gets hold of everything because profits and, you know, the shareholder report, you know, is people are so managing to that and not including the long term, that the stuff doesn't get built. So I'm interested, Bob, you and Griff got back and forth about an idea that you had.
Right. And I like, Rebecca, I like your answer, because we had both of those at AT&T, or have had that the past couple of years. One problem that we experienced, though, is those two teams were very much separated and didn't talk to each other. So the experienced team that was creating that vision and pointing the aircraft carrier in the right direction, you know, to say, here's where we're going, and created the programs, managed by someone different, reported to someone different, didn't practice Agile, didn't, you know, they were like people we were jealous of, because they also got very cool offices. But then, you know, we were trying to implement these Agile, you know, Scrum at first, then we did Safe, and then we did a combination, and you know, it can be done, it gets things done, but you're not always doing that experience design. You're not always doing that design thinking or applying that in every sprint. You're just trying to get crap out the door. And,
Yeah.
but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think that's where the collaborative component comes in. And I think one thing that I could add to this is modern ways of working, like doing sprints. And so that's really kind of the space I've moved into, because, you know, you're right. Even if you have those resources to think forward and create those visions, you have to come together and meet in the middle with the people on either side, like the kind of future forward strategy and the execution, in order to really get the feedback. Like, you know, it's great that you have that pie in the sky thing, but we're not going to get this new technology, you know, dependency until, you know, whatever year. And so we need to come together and think through how we're going to solve this in the intermediary. And, you know, that was often a role that I would play, is kind of help facilitate those types of bridge the gap type of conversations. And also, so I think it's also valuable to have people whose roles are really thinking, how can we get home runs out of the work that the Agile teams are doing? So, you know, looking at those portfolios and saying, they're working on this thing. What if we bringing somebody over from this other team to help them in this sprint, so that while they're doing this thing, that, you know, this user story, they can also address a dependency from our project. So, you know, it is complicated. You know, it's not necessarily easy, but the more that there's line of sight into what all of the teams upstream and downstream are doing, and there's people who can kind of be the super connectors in between, the easier this is to actually deliver value faster in a way that's aligned with that long-term vision. So we're experience work 2 sprints ahead, but larger research efforts 2 quarters ahead. They've also talked about it. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yes, I'm trying to get there.
Yeah.
I'm just like 2 weeks ahead right now. I'm trying to get 2 months ahead, or 2 sprints. I mean, 2 quarters ahead.
It's, yeah, that catch up work is not fun.
No.
Good. If you need some help, let us know. Okay, so just to close this out, I wanted to give an idea of how you might be able to get this started where you are, where you could look for opportunities to create the beginning of an experience strategy. And I would just say, start with this intersection between unmet customer needs and business goals. Mining frontline employees and customer data for opportunities around where there's friction, where people are complaining. That's often places that you can try to then layer on a business goal that you could probably address. So taking the insight that you get from interviewing customers around those friction points, or interviewing in frontline employees around those friction points, ideating solutions that also are aligned with your existing business goals, that creating a story that has that need plus the data and the maybe hypothesis as to how much value you can deliver, how much you can move a metric that's important to a stakeholder, and then pitching that stakeholder is one way to build advocacy. And I think just starting small like that is a place to start if the company you're working for isn't really hugely experience oriented, but starting to tell the stories as you're making those types of wins can start to more aggressively build the snowball effect of maybe there's some real value to unlock here. And I shared this slide. It's a little bit blurry and heady, but only because, again, it's from this great research from McKinsey, and it really shows where those companies that are driving the double growth numbers from their laggards are finding the biggest growth, right? So again, in this drawing, we're seeing basically the people who are the companies that are excelling at UX at this top blue line, the ones that are lagging at UX or customer experience or experience in general are this bottom line, the darker line. And the places that experience strategies have seen great payoff are, from the biggest opportunity space is here in the service journeys, right? So I just think about, when I go to pay, to change my payment method at let's say Netflix, right? But let's say Netflix had, it was a terrible experience and I couldn't figure out how to change my credit card. And then I had to call in order to actually change the payment method. That's driving costs for the business because then they're having somebody on the other end, paying somebody to answer my phone call. And so if they were to just make it easier to update my debit card so I could pay them with a different card, that can reduce the number of calls into their contact center. So finding places where the experience is bad and that we're seeing calls being driven or customer service issues coming up is one really profitable place to start when it comes to experience-led growth. So sometimes it's not about driving more profit from product sales, it's about reducing costs in the business. Other is that they're finding opportunities around retention offers. So I was actually on Trans the other day. I was I can't this, and then they will give you the same thing, $10 versus $30. So I was okay, I'll stay for a little while longer. So seeing indicators that somebody's going to leave the company and then finding ways to kind of hook you back in is another place. And these companies too are doing a lot with looking at the data that the customers around customer behavior and finding ways to both deepen the relationship, like personalizing something for customer or offering a personalized upsell when they see the opportunity. So those are I just mentioned these because if you're looking at where can I look to create an experience vision for my company, these are kind of when you're looking at the end-to-end customer journey, different lenses to look for opportunities. So just to wrap back again, so what is an experience-led growth strategy? What does it contain? It's that experience, it's that deliberate vision to create a differentiated experience. And then it's linked, you're breaking down the vision into specific experience enhancements and demonstrating what value that can drive across the customer life cycle and quantifying that. And then thinking about what is it going to take to actually enable that vision, and using all of that to advocate for the transformations that your company needs in order to make that successful. So that would conclude the talk. Thank you guys. Appreciate the time, and just wanted to end with asking anybody for highlights if they felt like there was something that really sparked excitement or was a good learning for them. I'd love to hear it. And I'm also open to, your questions.